most of the time that I felt like my wife was picking on me, or most of the times that I felt like my wife was being too hard on me, she was actually consulting me. She was showing up for me.
If it really is happy wife, happy life, then what you're actually trying to do is you're trying to actually make her happy, not just make her quiet, or not just make her satisfied or, occupied.
Yeah.
It's about actually creating happiness.
Any man that can shrink his ego enough to let his wife be his mentor, she can tell you what she wants, but she's only going to do it in a tone that you're going to appreciate is if you're not resisting it.
Yeah.
And there's a place here waiting for you. For your business, yeah, we're on the Lord's time, sharing his love and his light.
Well, welcome everybody to another episode of Brothers in the Foyer. My name is Krispin. I'm here with Isiah as well. And we have a very special guest today. We have Chris Smiles. Know him from a while back. We used to play ball against each other a little bit in college. Former collegiate basketball player at BYU, former professional athlete as well in the Czech Republic, Germany, and France. He's since retired and now he has a wonderful family with some beautiful children. And we have him on not only to talk about his journey through athletics, but we want to talk about life. There's some pivots that had to happen in his life as well. And we want to talk about that as well as what he's got going on now with his business and what he's promoting as well. But as always, we thank you all for joining us. We want you guys to like, subscribe, follow, share, and we hope you enjoy this conversation we have with this wonderful gentleman, Chris. Chris, welcome on the show.
Guys,
yes, man. Welcome.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It's an honor.
So, like I said before, we had our time playing against each other, and it really was just, I was at JUCO up the way at Salt Lake Community while he was at BYU, so we'd come down and we'd spar, I'll say, against each other. But so we go back since college days, and just kind of want to get a background from you, where you're from, what you were doing through life, what got you to that point, and like what you're up to now, and then we kind of branch from there.
Cool. Yeah, guys, thanks for having me. It's an honor. It's a pleasure to be here. So, it was great to catch up with you too.
Yeah.
Just hanging out while we're waiting. But I grew up in Provo, so played high school basketball at Tempe High School, and then I was fortunate, got to play in my hometown, BYU. That was really fun. It was great to have my family, my parents at a lot of the games. And then after college, I was fortunate enough to be able to play a little bit longer. So I played 3 seasons overseas. I played in the Czech Republic, Germany, France, like you said. And in my 3rd season, my daughter was supposed to be born in France, and the OBG said your daughter's going to have some serious health complications. And so we decided to come home, not have a language barrier in the hospital. Yeah. And she was born 4 pounds, couple ounces. And then by the time she was 10 pounds, had to have open heart surgery. Good. And so, my career ended, and it was immediate transition on to the next thing. And for the next several years, the biggest goal was just, trying to keep her alive.
Absolutely.
And then you move on and move forward.
Yeah. Now she is the oldest. Or she's the second?
She's the second.
She's the second
one.
Okay, so you already have a baby, which is hard enough as it is. You're overseas. You got a wife, a baby, new baby on the way, issues that they see coming. So you're wrapping your head around that. So what was it like for you to be in that scenario where you're overseas, career's kind of booming, you're moving along through that, and then to have this wrench in the program kind of like hit? What was that like when you guys kind of found out there were going to be some complications, and then what was that process?
Realistically, the first couple seasons were a little bit rough just because I was getting used to living in a different country and getting used to the lifestyle. What I will say is I loved playing basketball and not having homework.
Yeah.
And not staying up till 2, 3 in the morning writing papers.
Oh, that's big time. Yes, absolutely.
And so I loved playing ball. I loved Europe. I loved my time there. I loved my teammates. I was having the time of my life. But just getting used to it and kind of getting used to, okay, now your job is contingent on stats, which before it was more like, hey, if the team's winning and you're fitting into the puzzle that's helping it win, you're going to get a lot of minutes. And so I got to start 3 years that I was at BYU just for kind of fitting in. Yeah. But I was never statistically driven at BYU, which is, it's obvious. Like I had a couple seasons where I had some okay stats, but it wasn't a huge priority. But in Europe, and playing for a living, you have to look at your stats every single game and make sure that you have certain averages, because your coaches are going to judge you on it, and it's part of the job description. So that was a little bit of an adjustment. You know, some of my teammates, my first season or two, were like, "Hey, you got to keep track of rebounds in your head. You know, count them."
Absolutely.
And
Hit those quotas, man.
and there were guys, and I actually loved it, but there were guys from other teams that they would count them out loud. You know,
Wow.
so they get a rebound.
I know, right?
5.
Yeah. So I think that there was an adjustment. Sports is always an adjustment, right? You're always adjusting to, where do I fit on this team? What is my actual talent level versus what I see in my head? And we all, you know, you have to kind of inflate your own personal value in your head a little bit to fit in. But then there's also like a little bit of reality of like, okay, how good am I, and how much value do I actually bring? And so I think you see yourself under a microscope in that environment anyways on a constant basis, and you put a lot of pressure on yourself because you want to keep getting better and you want to keep getting a bigger contract or whatever. So there's constantly pressure there. And so, you know, transitioning to, okay, now I'm 100% focused on trying to keep my daughter alive. It was a different pressure. It was a more painful pressure, but it was just kind of constant pressure the whole time. It wasn't, ironically, that wasn't the biggest part of the adjustment. It was just, okay, now I don't know what I'm doing. At least I had a few years to get used to this pressure. And now with this new pressure, I have no idea what I'm doing. So had to ask a lot of questions.
Goodness gracious.
Yeah, I've probably asked 10,000. I haven't put in 10,000 hours in the hospital, but I've asked 10,000 questions.
Oh, easy. Yeah, absolutely. My firstborn daughter ended up having some, well, I wouldn't say complications. It was more so like she was our firstborn, so we were really excited for her. And my wife, who deals with hypertension, high blood pressure, everything was going great through the pregnancy. Right around, we had about maybe 8 weeks left to go before her due date. We go to the doctor, like a normal routine visit. We go home. You know, the remnants of possible preeclampsia are there, but nothing to worry about type thing. We go back for the next weekly visit, and the doctor's like, "So we're going to head over to the hospital now." And we were like, "What?" And they're like, "Yeah, your levels are super high here, here, and here. We believe you're preeclamptic. We need to get you to the hospital now. We need to get the baby out." We were like, "What?" So they rushed us over to the hospital. And
how long was this before the due date?
7 weeks.
7 weeks.
7 weeks. So it was right in that sweet spot where they were telling us where they weren't sure if the lungs were going to be developed or anything yet. So they got Kay prepped for, you know, tried to hold the baby in as long as they can. They gave her like steroids to help kind of super push along the development of the lungs, hopefully. And then Kay just, with preeclampsia, you get so sick, your organs will start to shut down if you hold the baby in too long. So it got to that point to where it was go time. They couldn't risk Kay anymore. They had to get baby out, and took us to emergency C-section surgery. And I was able to go in for that and got Cadence out. And so once Cadence was out, it was like quiet. So we were all waiting on the cry, because that are the lungs there. You know what I mean? So that, it seemed like 20 minutes, and it was really like 15 seconds, but it seemed like forever. And then Cadence finally cried, and it was like, oh, it was like this breath of fresh air. And then Kay finally could like get knocked out. She was like fighting to stay awake.
This is your first baby?
Yeah, first one. And so she was in the NICU for maybe like 3 or 4 weeks after, just to gain weight and learn how to eat, because she was so small. But she was 3 pounds, 5 ounces.
3 pounds, wow.
But she was 18 and a half inches long. So she was, I'm 6'8" and Kay is 6 foot. So like she had our height from jump, but she only weighed about 3 pounds, 5 ounces. And I have a picture of her all swaddled up, and I'm literally holding her like a football. Yeah. Because that's how small she is. But now you look at her, she's 12 and she's 5'10". You would not think this was the preemie of our group at all. She's a giant. So we were very fortunate in that regard. But for a while there, it stagnated my decision to want to go overseas. With her being our firstborn, and she was born the day I was supposed to walk for graduation from college. And I had an offer to go play in Argentina the next day. But here we are in the hospital, so I can't walk. I'm supposed to leave. And I don't know if Cadence is going to be all right. I don't know if Kay is going to be all right. So I turn it down. And like 2 days later, after the magnesium starts to wear off and Kay is a little bit more coherent, she's like, you should have just went. I'm like, I'm not gonna, you can't even stay awake. Baby's in the NICU. I'm not flying out, not knowing that scenario.
And you're committed. You're all in.
Yeah.
Your top priority.
Yeah, absolutely.
Most definitely.
And she's like, you should have had the faith like me. We would have been fine. And I'm like, that's easier said than done. But anyway, so I missed out on an opportunity there as I was pursuing basketball. But being in that scenario where you have no idea what you're doing, you don't know how everything's going to turn out, and everything turns to, are they going to be okay?
Yeah.
That mindset I relate to completely. As we get a little further in that, though, I have a question, or I have something that I want to kind of just shine a little light on for our listeners. All three of us are former basketball players. All three of us have our own stories when it comes to the pursuit of being a professional basketball player as well. So I would love to hear, we heard a little bit of your pursuit. I would love for Isiah as well to kind of chime in on the pursuit of professional sports, as far as like the transition from what we were doing in college or what we were aspiring to do to the journey, however that went out. But what was that mindset when it came to like, I'm going to try and put everything I can into this? I wanted to know, I want them to hear a little bit about your story with that, because I don't think it's been told yet.
No, not at all. I didn't know, but the story is, there's so much parallelism between the story you just shared with Kay and Cadence, with me and my wife, because my wife was preeclamptic as well with our firstborn. And my firstborn was 4 pounds, 5 ounces. So he came out very tiny. At the time, we were in Fresno, where he was born, in California. And just the whole parallelism behind it. At the time, I was playing in this city league, and we were literally in the tournament at the time. And my wife had an emergency C-section, and she's just like, no, I know they need. I'm like, I'm not about to leave like you guys to go play basketball. Why are you like, that's not even an option right now. Like,
I know you know,
just
I love ball,
bored.
But
Come
like, on, man.
Like that's that's crazy. The parallel right there at the exact same time too. But yeah, my journey was a bit different, man. Like, cause I grew up single mother, and so in terms of like growing up and her being able to guide me into basketball, it was after high school. She did her best. Like, I had a great junior, senior year out of high school, but I didn't have any scholarship offers or anything like that. So everything that for me was just, I have to develop on my own. My brother, was a big part of my development as well, and trying to help me get to the next step. I was on the practice squads for the school I went to at East Tennessee State. Because if you weren't recruited for basketball there, you couldn't walk on. They literally just had recruiters. Recruitments. So my journey, I had to kind of go the long way. I didn't play in college, just on the practice squad. After that, I did do some semi-pro in terms of basketball that way. Before I decided to go on a mission, I was like, this is going to be my last chance of like going pro. The Utah Flash ironically had some tryouts down in Americus, Georgia, which is like far
for the Flash.
For the Flash, for the Utah Flash back in the time. And that was Mark Madsen was one of the coaches at the time, and so I got to meet Mark Madsen. Ironically, I go on my mission, and his brother is serving as an elder on the mission. Elder Madsen,
small world,
super small world. So after that, it was like all in on trying to go pro. At the time, it was
the D League.
D League is what it was. It wasn't the G League. It was the D League. And once that didn't work out, I was like, all right, that was the end of my pursuit for basketball in terms of going professional. And here I am. Here I am now. So I kind of had the long way. I didn't have the total support, but
that's cool. That's cool. So I just wanted to kind of just center that conversation, because we're probably going to get off on some tangents when it comes to basketball, and just to let everybody know where that's coming from. We're sitting here with three former basketball players, competitive basketball players as well. So you had this life plan of wanting to pursue basketball at least until you were 40. Like that was the plan. I'm going to go into this career until, or look close to it. You wanted to play ball for a while.
That's what I was thinking. I'm sure my oldest daughter probably would have had something to say. She's in a different country every year, you know. But yeah, especially in the beginning when my oldest daughter now was just a baby at the time. She was 1 year old. So she was born when I was at BYU. She was born my senior year, but she was 1 when we were in the Czech Republic. So we were carrying her around in a car seat. She didn't know any different. In the world, So for my wife and I, were like, hey, this is an opportunity to travel the world and just live different places, see different places. And it was a lot of fun. And we were both small, you know, we were both from Provo and never really thought like we were going to go anywhere with life or do anything with life. So it was really cool to get to see a few different countries. And my wife was like, I never thought I'd live anywhere like this, whatever. That was really fun. And I'm like, cool. As a husband, I'm like, hey, I don't know what I have to offer you. So if I can offer you a different place to live or somewhere cool to live,
I can do that
you are happy with, then I'm going to ride this wave as long as I can. And I love basketball. And I didn't really feel like I had a lot of other life skills. So I'm like, I want to play basketball as long as I can. And the goal was to play in a different country every year or stay in a country for maybe 1 or 2 years and then try somewhere else and just, you know, see the world. And so we got to do it for 3 seasons. Yeah.
That's what's up. That's awesome. You say that about your wife. Like I have nothing to offer you but myself. I 100% agree with that because my plan, I was so hopeful about it. I was so set on it that plan A and B was basketball. Yeah, I was either going to play it or I was going to find a way to coach it. It was nothing else. And life was like, you better figure something else out fast. Yeah. Because basketball is not going to be in the forefront of your life as long as you want it to be. And I found that out, kind of in a similar way because I was only able to play pro for about 4 years as well. So, and I wanted to go longer, but I also, with Isiah, I had the long route as well because I didn't go on my mission until I was almost 21. So I got back 22 and then got to JUCO at 23. My freshman year, I was 23 years old. And then I get to Slick and they're like, well, we want to redshirt you because we have other guys in front of you. So I'm thinking, okay, more opportunity to get better, more opportunity to make pro a thing. Redshirt. So my actual freshman year was 24. So I didn't graduate college until I was 27 years old. And I was like, okay, well, I'm older now, but I'm more ready. Let's try to get this going. And I was hoping 10 years. I figured 27 to 37, a 10-year career, I could be fine. God was like, figure something else out fast. So I had to pivot a lot with that as well. But you're overseas. You got issues going on with your daughter. Life has now hit you in a way where Heavenly Father's kind of just letting you know, hey, we need to figure out something else to do. So you're back home. What happens now? Like, what is that process now from doing basketball through college, doing basketball in life, to now I got to do something else? What was that?
That was scary.
Like? Yeah.
It was scary. It was intimidating. So I got a job with the company right away. I started looking for jobs right away when we came back, and I found a job doing phone sales, and I lasted like a week.
It's tough.
Well, my wife was at the hospital, so she was doing non-stress tests at the hospital because it was one of those things where they didn't know exactly what was wrong with the baby. But matter of fact, the doctor in France, he said, hey, your daughter's femur is measuring short and your husband is really tall. So that is an indicator that your daughter probably has Down syndrome. And he's like, we don't know for sure, but like the likelihood is very high, which she does have Down syndrome, my second daughter. And I might get these stats a tiny bit wrong, but 50% of kids with Down syndrome don't survive birth, period.
Oh gosh, okay.
And then of the 50% that do survive birth, because they usually just don't catch it. And so if every cell in the body has an extra 21st chromosome. And so, it's really, really common for the heart to not develop, to be strong enough to carry to full term. And so a lot of kids with Down syndrome are stillborn.
Goodness.
And
okay.
so it all started with a measurement of the femur, and I was like, this guy's crazy.
Right.
He's looking in a book, and then he's telling us what's happening. And it was hard for me to kind of trust it. I wasn't in complete denial. He's a doctor. He's a professional.
Yeah.
So on the one hand, I trust him, but on the other hand, I'm like, is that enough information to really kind of call that shot? And apparently it was. He was right. So, but the uncertainty brought us back. And so my wife had to spend a lot of time at the hospital because the first stop was the hospital back in Provo. And we just said, hey, our OBG in France was saying that our daughter's going to have health complications. So they started doing all sorts of tests, and they said, yeah, this baby's tricky. We don't know exactly what's going on. But your baby is really tricky, and her heart is like, there's times where her heart looks really good, and then there's times where her heart looks like it's really stressed, and so we need to keep a really close eye on it. So my wife practically lived at the hospital. I might get emotional talking about it.
No worries.
My wife was practically living at the hospital, and I was trying to find a job and trying to figure life out.
Yeah.
And so I remember trying to make sales on the phone, which I wasn't good at, and I didn't know how to talk to people, especially not trying to push a product.
Yeah.
And my wife's texting me and calling me, and she's kind of emotional, and she's scared, and she's at the hospital by herself. And I'm like, I'm a horrible husband. And, so I asked my manager, I was like, hey, my wife's at the hospital. Can I go? And he's like, yeah, go ahead and go. But I just kept, every day I'd come into work, and then every day I'd leave and I'd go to the hospital. And so I don't even think I made a sale. If I'm being honest with you, I was there for a couple of weeks. So I just kept leaving and going to the hospital. And I remember just thinking, like, this isn't working. I'm not going to figure this out. I'm not motivated to figure this out. I don't want to. And my wife's at the hospital. I really want to try and figure out how to be there with her. So, to me, in my own movie of life, because I have to, sometimes we aggrandize our own lives to ourselves and turn it into a story, and we're trying to, write our story. But for me, I was we were renting this little house in Provo close to the hospital. And I remember one night my wife went to bed, she was sleeping, and I couldn't sleep. And so I went into the living room, and I was sitting on the couch, and I prayed, and I was like, Heavenly Father, I don't know what I'm doing. I need help. And I kind of had this impression or this feeling or this thought, grab a piece of paper and a pencil. We're going to start a business. So I create my first little business model ever. And it was for a basketball academy. I'm like, I love coaching. I've coached a few private clients over the years. If I could get enough clients, or if I could get a gym or figure out some way to do this, maybe this could work where I'm only working so many hours per week instead of putting in a full 40, 50 hours a week or whatever. And I write down this first little business model, and I looked at it, I'm like, and I have no idea, I don't remember, but I remember thinking and feeling like that's not going to work. So I crumpled up the paper and I threw it in the trash can, and then I write down another one, and then I remember I looked at it, and I'm like, that's not going to work either. So I crumpled it up, threw it down, and by like the fourth or fifth little business model that I was trying to create, I remember after I kind of got it down, how many clients I would need, how much I would charge. Do I think that people would actually pay that? I remember looking at it and thinking, like, feeling really good about it and thinking this is going to work. And so, I kind of pitched my wife on it. I was like, hey, if I work Tuesdays and Thursday nights for 4 hours each night, the rest of the time I can be with you the best that I can at the hospital, whatever you need, but I'm probably going to have to commit to those 8 hours. And it ended up working. So I rented the gym from Carl Mazer Prep Academy in Linden. I rented their gym 2 nights a week. They were very gracious to have me. And I was able to get enough clients to kind of pay the bills and pay for food and make it through for about a year. And then our daughter was born, and like I mentioned earlier, she was born prematurely. We didn't know exactly when she would come, but basically we went into the hospital, and my wife, the baby failed the non-stress test, which is where they're testing to see, hey, is the heart doing okay? And the doctor was basically like, your daughter needs to be,
that's the go mode.
We got to deliver right now. And so, we rushed to a different floor of the hospital, and they started prepping for delivering the baby. And there was a lot of doctors in the room. And, it's one of those things where it's kind of blurry. It's like your emotions are so strong.
Yes, it is.
It can be hard to remember the details. And obviously you guys have had your own experiences that you can relate to that. But yeah, the baby was born, and that was kind of like miracle number one, because they told us going in, like, hey, if your baby's, we're going to monitor the baby's heart during this whole delivery. And if at any point in time it seems like she's going to die, then we're going to do it. We're going to try and save her doing a C-section. And they didn't end up having to do that. So very grateful to the doctors for the work that they do. But yeah, they had a heart monitor on her the whole time, and they were able to deliver her. And yeah, so our little baby came into the world, and she was tiny, and we spent from 4 pounds to 10 pounds. We spent that time in the NICU.
Gotcha.
Most of that time in the NICU, and then by the time she got to 10 pounds, they let her come home for a little bit on oxygen. But yeah, by the time she got to 10 pounds, it was time for open heart surgery at Primary Children's.
Good.
And yeah.
Gosh.
So I started a basketball academy, to your
Yeah.
original question, and coached for about a year while we lived in Utah. And then after that heart surgery, she needed another one in Boston. So we ended up about a week and a half later, she had a second open heart surgery in Boston. And the surgeon there was like, hey, your daughter, if you can move out here, it might save your daughter's life. And so I'm like, okay, it doesn't sound like we have a choice.
Right. Okay.
So I started looking for jobs on the East Coast, and I ended up needing to close my basketball academy in Utah. I found a job with Vivint Solar.
There you go. Okay.
On the East Coast. So one year I was living on the beach in France and feeling like all of those sprints and all the stitches and all the cuts and bruises, and Crispin beating me up. And
Man, I tried.
I was like, it all paid off. I'm here, kind of living my dream. And then the next year I was knocking doors in like 0 degree. The coldest I've ever knocked doors was 30 below with wind chill, 30 below. And that was literally the winter after my last season in Europe.
Goodness gracious.
Yeah.
Yeah. I want
Welcome
no
to
parts
real
of that.
life, Kristen.
Welcome to real life. Goodness gracious. So do you feel like that major life pivot gave you like a different definition of like what success is going to be? Because you had a trajectory kind of mapped out and planned out, and for the most part it seemed like it could work. You were happy, wife's happy, got a baby on the way. Well, the plan is to continue your family, but then, you have this humongous life pivot, and then yet another life pivot in that pivot. So how did those scenarios and the changes change your perspective on what success was for like life?
I have to give a lot of credit to my mission and to the church for kind of giving me a bigger perspective from the time that I was probably 19 on, from my mission on. Because before my mission, like I liked the church, and I felt appreciative to the church for what it gave me, because it kind of gave me, and I'm sure you guys feel the same way, kind of a sense of community, and some values. And church is a place that for some people it can be scary. Maybe for all of us, there's times when it's kind of scary, and I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't speak for anyone else.
No.
But there are times where it's like, do I belong? Do I fit in? Am I good enough? Am I righteous enough? And so, I had some of those thoughts and worries, but I also had a lot of appreciation for the activities and for my leaders. I had great leaders growing up that put a lot of effort into me. So I have plenty to be grateful for. But when I went on my mission, it did give me the eternal perspective, right? That your life is an entire life, and your mission is your entire life and beyond. And so for me, I think my biggest thing was I grew up really, really poor. And my parents got divorced, and my biggest thing was I really wanted to try and just give my wife and my kids enough stability that I felt good about myself. And kind of what I mentioned earlier, I don't have much to offer. So if I can offer you Europe, if we can go to Prague for your birthday, or Mont Saint Michel for your birthday, it was easy to make birthdays really special in Europe. I set the standard too high.
There you go.
For my wife's birthdays those years.
My goodness.
But yeah, I think that, thanks to the church and thanks to my mission, as long as I could give my wife and my kids a really good, stable life and try and find other ways to bring some excitement, there was hope. And so that was kind of the dream, is like, okay, how do I work hard enough now to give my wife and my kids stability? And that, that's been an up and down struggle, for most of my life in my marriage, you know?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Especially when you're talking about, you know, coming from an entrepreneurial standpoint, because that's kind of your whole focus. You want to go into business for yourself because you want to create something for yourself. You want the ability to enjoy your life with your family, but at the same time, you also want to build something that you're proud of. You want to see some of these ideas kind of foster into creation, and you want to live that dream of just, you know, being able to provide real stability to your family, but on your own terms, because you can't always get that if you're climbing the ladder, so to speak. Because when you're climbing the ladder, nothing wrong with that particular way of getting to the top. You're always at the beck and call of your supervisor, whoever that may be, which isn't real and true freedom per se in that. So I definitely can agree with you with that. But I look at, you know, what you were just saying there, especially with what you can offer your wife and how success has looked different. And all I can say is I'm so glad I have my wife and that she's patient with me, because what I now figure out about myself is I'm a very slow learner when it comes to what I can do on my own self-development. A really fast learner in school. School wasn't an issue for me when it comes to just grasping new concepts, but learning about myself has taken a long time and is continuing to take a long time. I'm 40 years old now, and just last year, I finally got into the career that I actually want to do. Because
congratulations.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Yeah. And doing singing and performing, it's a passion of mine, but doing it in the way that I'm doing it now has allowed God to really step in and say, this is what I have for you. And I think that's what allowed me to really want to take the leap, because my wife had been trying to push me to do it for a while. She's heard me sing before and she likes my voice, and she's like, why don't you do this? Because basketball is cool, but you could do this. And in my head, I'm like, but I'm a ball player. Like, I gotta play basketball. What are we talking about? She's like, but you're not, because you're not getting what you think you should be getting. Why not do this? And I was just, I guess, hard-headed. But I eventually heard Heavenly Father as he made the way for this to be what I need to now do. And essentially that calling kind of came on me as, this is how I want you to help spread my gospel. Because I am a really good teacher as well. I love teaching. I love coaching, because coaching is a way for me to teach the one thing I really love to teach, and that's basketball. Sure. So like when I work with kids and I teach them those things, I'm able to relate to them in a way where they grasp the information. And there's nothing better than looking into the eyes of someone and seeing that light bulbs turn on. Yeah. Where they're like, oh, I get it. It's infectious. Yeah. It's so awesome when you get to that point, no matter who you're talking to, when you get to that point to where they finally get it, and then they realize something in themselves and they're ready for that next level. It's so rewarding. Music for me has been that pivot to redefine what success is in my life. Because as cool as it is to say that you do music, it's not that I'm doing it. It's that it's the reaction that I'm getting from people when I share my testimony as I'm singing. They come up after me and are like, oh my gosh, I've never felt that way, or I've never heard that song sung that way, or the emotion that you put into it. And I'm just so grateful to Heavenly Father, because every time it happens, it's like a testimony from him saying, you are doing what I'd like you to be doing right now. And it just teaches me every day to be more like my wife, Kay. Like, get in tune with me so we can get on the right track faster. So I can definitely relate to that. And I feel like all fathers can kind of relate to what you said in that. And just, I want to provide stability for my family. Sure. And you have moments in your life where you're just like, I don't think I'm doing that, which causes you to second guess everything about yourself. Am I a good husband? Am I even a good person? Like, why am I not doing this? Why is it not working? What can I do better?
But what I'm hearing from you too is you want to provide that stability for your family, but while doing something you love. And there was a common theme between what you feel when you're sharing music as well as what you feel when you're coaching. And it sounds like, and just knowing your heart, you love seeing someone else's self-confidence develop. You see somebody else starting to feel comfortable with themselves, or starting to see like, hey, I can develop talents, I can develop skills, I can develop myself. And I think something that we probably all share, if I'm being assumptive, is that we all got a level of confidence from sports that we feel like, okay, I could do it in the gym, I can do it somewhere else too. And I think I think you probably have a profound love for giving that gift to other people.
I do.
Yeah.
I do. And without trying to sound like, I guess, cocky or arrogant, I figured out early that this was a talent Heavenly Father blessed me with, because how else would I be able to relate to so many different types of people the way that I do? But it opened me up to be able to do it in all the ways that I've been able to do it by realizing at least that point early. This is, I have a talent for.
Yeah.
I can help people get it because I get it.
Yeah.
And I'm able to see it in a way that's like, that can help you see it too. Whatever it is that we're trying to get you to learn. So that's essentially what it is. Now,
Yeah, no, it's definitely a gift. And it's good that you identify it. I don't feel there's anything cocky or arrogant about that at all, because a lot of times we don't even come to identify, what our gifts or talents or abilities are, and then to be able to take it and use it in a way where it can uplift or bring out the gifts in other people, so.
Yeah, don't ever apologize for
Yeah.
lifting other people up, right?
I know, right? Seriously.
Exactly.
No, but I love that. And I love that you guys in your own respective worlds do that as well. Isaiah, as a realtor, you do it also. The way you market your business, the way you project yourself to the world, it's like, yes, I'm a realtor and I do need your business, but at the same time, I'm not in it necessarily to get paid. I'm in it because I have a talent for it. But I know you're trying to build, a life for your family. Let me help you build a life for your family. Yeah. That's the way it reads when I look at your market.
Well, I appreciate that.
Let me help you get into a home. And it's like, it doesn't sound cheesy or like salesman-y.
Yeah.
It's my gosh, okay.
For me, I've adopted it's relationships over transactions. That's what I've adopted. Like, I do have a great love for seeing other people being able to accomplish their goals, and not only just accomplish their goals, but be able to build for their future and for their children's future. And so that's the business I'm in. I'm in the relationship building business, even though there's a sales aspect to it, because I feel, and a great portion of this comes from my wife, and even giving me the idea to go into real estate is just being able to help people provide a way for their future, because there's a lot of momentum that can go into getting a home and then using that home to be able to establish more assets and build wealth that way, generational wealth.
How did you said your wife helped get you into it or kind of help push you in that direction? Yeah. What did that look like?
So we were we were dating at the time. Actually, we weren't even quite engaged yet. And we were at the Provo Temple, on the temple grounds, just sitting around talking. And I had come off a mission, moved here from Utah, and I didn't quite know what I wanted to do. I know I wanted to work for myself, because before I went on the mission, I went to school for sports broadcasting. So that's what I wanted to do. It's like be behind the scenes at ESPN. That was like my thing. But I went on the mission. I had a mind shift change when I was on my mission. I was like, I don't want to work for anyone. I want to work for myself, but didn't know what that would look like. And my wife threw out the idea of real estate investment. She was like, we should, invest in, be real estate investors. And I was like, well, I don't know the first thing about real estate investing. My parents never talked to me about home ownership or anything like that. And so when we moved to California, I was like, well, I'm gonna just get a real estate license and learn how to transact real estate. And so in California is when I started learning just the process of how you can convey property from one owner to the next. And it was when I got here to Utah is when I actually got into it full time. And so the end goal is, ultimately to be investing in real estate, but I fell in love with actually the service aspect of helping other people acquire homes for the first time. I love working with first time home buyers.
Oh gosh.
Because it's such a just opening to a new chapter, in their life. And so that's what I fell in love with, and that's how it came to be. And I prepped for you just a little bit and noticed that you are a relationships coach for men.
Yeah.
How did you, what does that entail, and how did you get into that whole field?
A lot of failure,
Well,
yeah.
That's how we learn.
Yeah, learn everything the hard way. So, I mentioned that I coach youth sports. I coached basketball for I ran a basketball academy twice, and I just loved the kids that I coached, and I love coaching, and I love my basketball coach gave me so much confidence that I didn't have, and basketball gave me so much confidence that I didn't have before that. Because I went to a high school where, you know, half the school was very, very wealthy, very affluent, and that wasn't me. And so I'm like, every kid here has stuff I don't have, you know. And so but basketball gave me an identity, and it gave me some confidence, and it gave me some purpose, and it kind of in a lot of ways boosted my social standing to where like I felt comfortable fitting in. And so I feel like I owe a lot to basketball. But you know, as I age and as I mature, I'm realizing that there is a huge and entrepreneurially, you know, I kind of mentioned my first little business model writing down on paper, and so I'm not like an amazing entrepreneur, but I love being an entrepreneur, a small level entrepreneur. And so, I helped start a company called Ambia Energy, and I've been building that for the last 5 years. And I've been mentoring and training. I was the corporate trainer, a corporate sales trainer, for, you know, I've probably trained 400 or 500 reps in the last 4 or 5 years.
Goodness.
And the thing that, and some of it's been great. And, you know, some of those guys have been able to help make enough money to buy their first home. And, you know, I've had my failures along the way too. But, I think that when you start to think entrepreneurially, it's like, there's problems in the world, and if I can offer a solution or if I can help, then that's a great thing. Because my parents got divorced and I saw how much pain they went through, you know, when my parents got divorced, I felt bad for my parents. I didn't really feel very sorry for me in the moment because I saw how much they were hurting. And I'm like, man, I don't want my wife to feel the way that my mom feels right now. I don't ever want to feel the way that my dad feels right now. You know, it was we all see our father as this really, really strong person if we are lucky enough to have our father in our life. And the glimpses that I had of my dad were pretty small because he was usually working 2 to 3 jobs to try and provide a living. And so he was usually gone by 5 a.m. and then, you know, usually got home pretty late if he was working, you know, 2 or 3 jobs, which was normal. And my parents' relationship was always kind of rocky, and we always felt that tension in the home. And then, you know, I remember praying and being like, Heavenly Father, like, I don't want my parents to get divorced. And then, but they kind of kept fighting and they kept struggling and kept having a really hard time. And by the time that they got divorced, I wasn't praying for that anymore. I was just kind of hoping and praying for my parents to have peace. Yeah. And so as a 12-year-old kid, I remember
that was going to be my next question. So you were 12?
I was 12 when they got divorced. And so as a 12-year-old kid, I remember trying to comfort my mom when I was with my mom, and I remember trying to comfort my dad when I was with my dad. And there's a lot of insecurity when a marriage falls apart. Yeah. And so that made a huge impression on me. That's part of what shaped who I am. And so when I got married, I was so committed and so determined to try and be a great husband and a great father and a great provider. And like, if I'm being completely honest, no matter how much work I did, things weren't working out, right? My basketball career was taking off, and it was starting to go really, really well. And then it was ripped away from me, and that was out of my control. Right. And then, you know, I started a business that was doing okay in Utah, and you know, it was like starting to grow. Yeah. And then the surgeon in Boston was like, hey, if you guys move out here, it might save your daughter's life. You know, it's your call. But I'm like, not really. Not really. You know, not really. Like, there's not really a choice to be made there. And so moved to New York and did okay my first time selling. When you're selling, the way that we were doing it, the weather really impacted. There was like 4 months straight of snow, which basically meant I couldn't make any money. I luckily made enough playing basketball, and I luckily made enough my first couple months that I was out there doing sales that it kind of carried me through, you know, 4 or 5 months or so of not being able to make money. But even if I made a sale, the systems couldn't get installed, and so I couldn't get paid even if I was succeeding. And so once again, I was in a situation where I'm like, this is completely out of my control. Yeah. And so wanting to provide stability for a lot of time was really difficult because, and I mean, I'm Crispin, you know, like I'll fight and I'll grind and I'll get in the trenches and we'll battle. You know, you will too.
Absolutely.
I learned that. I learned that really quick. You know, you're a beast. But yeah, so you know, a lot of times things happen that are out of our control, and the way that we're raised and the way that we're mentored, and whether or not we have a father figure that's able to be around, whether or not we have a father figure and a mother figure. I usually say the father figure because I think that wives and mothers usually figure out a way to hold it together. They wind up being the rock of our society, and I think that they're dropping the ball way less often. Yeah, you know, if a man leaves the picture, mom's still there, right? And she'll scrap and she'll fight and she'll figure out a way.
Oh, absolutely.
And not to say there aren't single fathers out there, because there are, but we hear about it more being single mothers than the single fathers.
And you know, again, kind of back to me trying to tell myself, you know, trying to create this life story where I wanted to matter to myself. I was constantly looking for something like, hey, you're a professional basketball player, and kind of stroking my own ego with that. Or, hey, you left professional basketball to take your daughter, to try and take care of your daughter. That was something that I kind of stroked my ego with, that my priorities were good. Yeah. And all along the way, while I'm trying to like build up my own self-worth as a husband and as a father, anytime I was caught up doing that, my wife was alone. And so I thought I was a great husband, and I didn't realize my wife was starving in a lot of ways. And I'd never heard of this until recently, but I kind of had this toxic optimism about me, this toxic positivity. Yeah. And because of that, I wasn't really emotionally available to my wife. I didn't even know what that was.
Yeah, I was going to ask, like, what does that look like? Because, I mean, I've never heard of that. And I feel like maybe I've experienced that and haven't even known.
Sure.
You know, so like, how did you come to realize or grip this toxic optimism and how it affected your wife?
You know, I can define it in terms of like what my wife's life experience has been like and what my life's experience has been like. And hers is a lot more real and a lot more raw and a lot more down to earth. And mine, because of sports and because of my ego, is kind of an inflated thing. And I'm happy to admit that, because if I don't, I can't work on it and I can't be better. Yeah. You know, you guys know this. As long as the clock's running, there's hope to win that game. Yeah. Right.
Absolutely.
And you're going to fight through until the clock runs out. And I feel horrible that I wasn't better for my wife in this way, but my wife's father passed away when same age that my parents got divorced. So when she was 12 years old, she was in the 6th grade.
Got you.
My father's wife passed away. He had type 1 diabetes, and you know, he lost his eyesight and slowly kind of withered away. And he was like a bodybuilder and a really strong guy, and he was like a Charles Abuo, right? He was always eating healthy and really taking care of his body, but again, outside of his control. And I'll say, a man that I've never met, my wife's father, he's probably my biggest hero.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Because I think he's stronger as a man than I am. So with type 1 diabetes, he lost his eyesight. He went back to school, got a master's degree in not sociology, but he was a social worker. And so as a man that was blind, that his life and his body were withering away, and it was completely out of his control. Like, he did an incredible job taking care of himself. Went back to school. He was one of the first, or maybe the first. He was kind of one of the pioneers at BYU for to pioneer a program for blind people to be able to graduate and get a degree. And so he got a master's in social work, and then he got a job at the prison. Which isn't like normally the number one place you're looking to work when you can't see, right? And you're in a very vulnerable state and you can't really protect yourself. You know, and he's, as a man, he's like, doesn't matter what weaknesses I have, or it doesn't matter if I'm blind. He wanted to help people that were sick, and he wanted to help people that had mental health issues. He wanted to help people that maybe had no one else in their corner.
Gotcha.
You know, so yeah, he's sorry, man. I got to stop crying enough to at least communicate, right?
You're good.
You're good.
Love it.
But yeah, he really is. I've never met him, but I know him and I know his legacy, and he's definitely one of my heroes. And so, you know, the biggest goal that I set out to in life, to be a good husband and father, I was a failure and I didn't realize it. And, my wife was so unhappy and she was so starved emotionally and kind of to a point where, you know, there wasn't much in the marriage for her, even though I thought I was doing a great job, because on paper and in the story that I was telling myself, I thought I was a great husband. And so, you know, you said, what does that look like? Well, when we're in the hospital, to me, the clock is still running. I'm like, babe, there's still a chance to win this game. Like, our daughter she's still here.
Right.
And so for me, I have this unhealthy optimism almost about the situation.
Yeah. Okay.
And so now my wife, who has lost someone, and it's like, you don't realize, like, it doesn't always work out. You know, she's got a more realistic perspective on life. And so, like, our emotion, we were not on the same page emotionally.
I'm definitely guilty of that. Like just from that first, because my wife calls herself like a realist.
Sure.
And for me, it's hard for me to understand where she's coming from with that, saying like, and I get it. Always never put your hope all in one basket, because there's bad things that can happen. And it's that experience. I feel like she's experienced more raw things, and her way of dealing with it is completely different than mine. Because I feel like you, naturally, I kind of keep an optimistic view, you know, on everything, when a lot of times it's not quite that way based on how someone else have experienced something.
So to that,
That's real.
So to that point, what I've kind of realized is almost a universal problem in relationships. And one of the reasons I wanted to start this business and try and help solve this problem. And to be frank, like, I want to help change the divorce rate in America, in the world. I want to, and more than anything, I just want to help people have more happiness and more peace and more love in the home, because you guys have the best of intentions. I had the best of intentions. I thought my ego was maybe, you know, messing with that a little bit. And I can admit that, but, I've realized that women provide, that is a value that they provide, and you don't have to be in complete agreement to be in alignment.
Yeah.
And so something that I've learned, and it's taken me almost 20 years to learn this, is that
I'm going to write that down.
Right. Need that one.
you don't have to be in agreement to be in alignment. My wife provides so much value to my kids and to me. And I've realized, and this is something that I'm working on, and this is something that I want to help men work on, is that most of the time when your wife, when it feels like, I got to be careful, I got to be better at articulating like little words, like not when she is this way, but when it feels this way, right? Because perception and reality can be different. But what I've realized is that most of the time that I felt like my wife was picking on me, or most of the times that I felt like my wife was being too hard on me, she was actually consulting me. She was showing up for me.
Yeah.
She was working through problems that I was going to face, or that the family might face. And she's trying to bring that to the table. My wife, and you guys probably relate, my wife is not going to wait until I ask for help to say, hey, this, and this. These are things that our family needs. This is something that you need to work on. Did you make that phone call? Did you pick that thing up? And it's like, dang, man, like, if you're,
yes,
it's home
100%.
Yeah, like
100%.
And you know, we put this pressure on ourselves to be the leader of the household, and so we kind of like reject a lot of that feedback and want to be able to do it ourselves.
We call it nagging.
It's called nagging.
Exactly. Yeah.
But the reality is she is better than having like 5. As far as just feedback and reminding and caring for you, your wife is as good as 5 or 10 personal assistants and 10 good employees. Like we, as men, we let a lot of things slip through the cracks.
We do.
And we're trying to create this vision, and we're trying to create this life. And that is part of our role. But everything that we wind up letting slip through the cracks along the way, she's catching.
Has a toll, and it has an emotional toll on
It
her.
has
as
an
well.
emotional toll on her.
Yeah.
And so that's back to your original question is that's where like I was starving my wife emotionally and I was kind of abandoning her emotionally and I had no idea, right? I had all of this evidence that I was conjuring for myself to try and keep my self-esteem going and to keep also my ego going.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, she doesn't have an ego. She just wants to give the kids and our family the best life possible. And
Right.
that's where most of our arguments and disagreements were stemming from. And so
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, dang, you really held it together
Yeah.
for all those years.
Oh, gosh.
And I feel horrible and I feel like a failure. And that's where most of our tension came from. And so, yeah, that lesson of, hey, I don't have to have all the answers. And what I can do is take that nagging, and I try not, I don't really use that term.
Mm-hmm.
But I have lots of other weaknesses. So
Yeah.
No, absolutely.
Sometimes we say they tripping.
but
Leave me alone. It's like, well, yeah.
But I've
seeing it from that perspective.
Yeah, but I've started to realize like she's not my asset, but she provides so much value that I just need to find gratitude for it.
Yeah.
And so like even preparing for this, we were talking and in the past my ego would have been hurt like, oh, you don't think I'm going to do a good job? You don't think I'm going to, but in the past that's how it would have been,
Right.
But because I've had this discovery and what I've been working on, for trying to work on for several years, but really starting to get good at for, the past, 6 months or a year is I'm like, hey, I really appreciate you looking out for me because you're trying to think through all of these things with me. And I didn't even have to come ask for help. It's something it's something to appreciate.
No, I love that. And it's real because every single couple I think has moments or there's roles in the couple where you have one person who sees everything a bit more macro. Mm-hmm. They've got a vision of what they want to get done and they've got all these ideas to how to get it done and all these goals. Some may be lofty, some unrealistic, some that are realistic. And then you have that other person in the relationship that can be the realist maybe, or someone that just sees the detail. Mm-hmm. So it's like, it's not that you can't do it. What they're thinking about are the steps it's really going to take. Mm-hmm. You have all these ideas that seem great, but then you have that second person relationship, whoever that may be, and they're like, cool, but how? And then when they ask you how, you're usually sitting there like, man, this is a lot of questions. You don't think this is get done? And it's like, no, I do think you can get it done, but do you know how you're going to get it done? And it's just really hard in the moment to really see it as consultation.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Because in the moment you might feel attacked, you might feel, because you're being questioned, you're like, oh, do you not have confidence in this idea? And it's like, that's not necessarily the space it's coming from. It's coming from a space of like, I love the idea. How though? Yeah. Like, and it's not even like a pressure of like, babe, you need to figure out how. It's more so like, have you thought about it?
Yeah.
If you have, could you share? What I mean, type thing. And it's like,
and in that, I forget too, like this is the individual that have seen the most intimate parts of me, like emotionally, physically, spiritually, and she sees qualities and characteristics. So when I'm throwing out these, ideas or these lofty goals, she sees my quirks, so rather than me seeing it as a lack of support, I'm seeing it as, oh, you just don't believe in me, like see it in a negative way. No, but I gotta keep in mind that, oh, she sees, like she knows parts of me. That, that so
she knows what I'm gonna struggle with.
Yeah, she knows, and so there's this saying, happy wife, happy life.
Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. Where can we as men, I feel like, or Chris, and even from your experience, I'd love to know your thoughts on this. Where's the boundary? Because as men, like we have feelings, we have emotions that we feel like we would want women to be able to uphold us in that way as we feel as well. Is there a danger in that saying, like happy wife, happy life? Like just put everything into the wife. Let's put our feelings on the back burner as men to just make sure our wife's good and happy. Like where is that fine line of how we can tune? Because mental health is real. I've dealt with some mental health and anxiety, in my marriage, in my role as a man, husband, and father. So like, how can we navigate and kind of keep it to where there can be a balance and without feeling like we're not putting energy into our spouses or partners as we ought to?
I think there's two versions of happy wife, happy life. And I think one of them's really common. And I think one of them is a lot more rare. And I think the common side of it is why 50% of marriages end in divorce, first marriages. And I think it's why 70% of divorces are initiated by women, right?
Mm.
If men are just trying to appease his wife's feelings and just kind of manage her emotions, but wants to figure everything out on his own, and so on one hand, I think what a lot of men do is they try to appease their wife and tell her what she wants to hear, or just try and like keep her emotions calm, but not necessarily hear her, not necessarily make her point of view feel validated or appreciated.
Right.
And so, as you were talking, it's like when our wives try to bring us feedback, if we are taking it personal instead of appreciating it, to protect our own ego, a lot of times what we do is we kind of put up a wall.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of men, I definitely felt this way for a long time. I felt like my wife would kind of like push me away a little bit. The reality is, to protect my own ego, I was
that wall.
I was the one putting up the wall most of the time. Right. And so I think that most women universally, they want to be heard, they want to be seen, but a husband that is obeying orders and just doing what his wife says and not taking an active role at just seeing what the needs are in the home. And then just, I get, some of the comments that I get is like, don't use the word help. Because as soon as you say help, then it's like it's her responsibility. So it's like, but if she's doing it on her own, you are helping with the role. But it's more, hey, I'm going to take on this role with you. I'm going to be more evenly yoked in this role with you. And so, I think the version that is most commonly seen is men that are like, yeah, she's the boss. Let me ask the boss. If that's the nature of the relationship, then I don't think happy wife, happy life is super healthy. But if it's like, I want her to be happy because I value her opinion, I value her feedback, I value her perspective. When she shares her feelings with me, which usually feels like an attack, like I think pretty universally, maybe not in every, some guys are light years ahead of where I was for sure. But normally when our wives are giving us feedback, we take it personal because the feedback is going to be related. Like you said, she knows all of your weaknesses, right? Mm-hmm. And so usually the feedback that she's giving revolves around our weaknesses. Mm-hmm. So it feels like an attack, but really she's trying to say like, hey, these are things you're not good at. And that's why I keep helping you with it. Mm-hmm. It's why I keep sharing this insight. And so, the moment that we start to appreciate that feedback and appreciate all of the value that she's bringing, now all of a sudden she can share her feelings. And it's like, hey, I can, my wife told me, I need you to help hold my feelings. I'm like, what's that? What do you mean hold your feelings? I've never heard of this before. It's so foreign. But when she's coming to me and she's upset or she's distraught or she's happy or she's excited, she's sharing herself with me and she's sharing her life with me. She's sharing who she is and she's sharing her experience with me. And now I can respond appropriately and say, yeah, I want to be a part of everything that you see and everything that you feel. And that's something that I missed for probably 16 years. I wasn't doing.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
I so relate to that. And I feel like the latter view of how you explained it is how it ought to be. Like, there needs to be that correlation and grouping. Because I don't know, oftentimes I feel like when it's used, especially in the church, because I'm a convert. I was, 10 years now? No, 15 years now. But every time I've heard it, I feel like it's kind of like emasculates men, the way we use it. Yeah. A bit, to where it's just like putting all the obligation, as long as she's happy, I'll do what you say. You say jump how high, Yeah. And it kind of brings a more of a negative connotation to manhood, to me, is in terms of how it's been used, or the context.
To me, it's always been used as this like blanket statement men will use to say this is how you can obtain some level of peace. Mm-hmm. And men would say that, saying this is how you can have a peaceful life by just making your wife happy. But what you're not obtaining real peace, because when you do that, you're just trying to not have a wife bicker with you. Mm-hmm. You're just trying to not have a wife who's quote unquote complaining or nagging. Yeah. You're trying to get past your wife's feedback
Yeah.
into your life, and you're trying to do whatever you can to keep her occupied, to not give that version of herself to you. So you're not actually being a good husband. You're not actually being a man in the relationship. You're just trying to shut her up. And if it really is happy wife, happy life, then what you're actually trying to do is you're trying to actually make her happy, not just make her quiet, or not just make her satisfied or, occupied.
Yeah.
It's about actually creating happiness. And if you actually take on the mantra of happy wife, happy life with the actual mentality of finding out what you can do or what needs to happen to generate real happiness, then you will actually get the peace that we're hoping for, but it's real.
And I think that a lot of men, like myself included, for a lot of years, I wanted peace in the home. Peace isn't enough.
No, not at all.
Peace isn't good enough.
That's a piece of it.
And I can kind of demonstrate this with my daughter. So I've got a 6-year-old daughter, and if she's not happy, if she's not feeling loved, if she's not feeling seen, if she's not feeling appreciated, and again, just that's a little tiny human, right? That's a very young human, but those feelings are very mature, and those feelings are common because they're lifelong feelings.
Absolutely.
When my daughter feels safe, when my daughter feels seen, when my daughter feels like loved and like feels safe in the home, feels safe in her relationship with me, she's climbing all over me.
Yeah.
She's pulling my hair.
Yeah.
She's stretching out the necks of my shirt. I don't want peace. I want her to stretch out the neck of my shirt.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That might not be the most peaceful thing.
No.
But I know that it should be peaceful, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's not like, hey, we're sitting down and we're relaxing from a hard day's work. It's like, no, climb on me, knee me in the face a little bit.
Right.
We're playing tag.
Yeah.
Whatever. And so you can extend that to the relationship with your wife as well. It's like, you shouldn't just want peace with your wife. It might be an upgrade from where you feel like you're at. But you said that word, like just try and like shut her up or try and make her, which gosh, it's hard saying those words,
It is.
Right.
Not to her, but even just saying, not to her, but I just want to clarify, even just saying that out loud, it's like, I don't even want to say that out loud.
Yeah.
But it's like wanting peace in that regard, that's not a good thing.
No.
Right. Like the moment that your wife is like, man, no matter what I throw at him, he's appreciating it. This is cool. This is what I signed up for.
Yeah.
This is where I want to be, because every woman wants to leave their mark on their man. And so when you go out into the world, she wants to know that no matter what gets thrown at you, you're not going to bend. Your character's not going to bend. Your standards are not going to bend. And so she's going to try and bend you at home while giving you feedback, while focusing on your weaknesses. She's like a workout partner that you're playing one-on-one full court with, and she's going to steal the ball from you and rip you and just eat you alive until you can finally keep up. And it doesn't matter how long it takes you. She cares so much about your development, right? That she's not going to let up until you can finally hang.
Yeah.
And so like, it's not going away.
No, not at all.
Peace isn't the answer. But, as soon as you can kind of hang in that one-on-one, it's like, hey, this is really fun. This is really cool. And you've helped me become someone that I couldn't be without you. And now, no matter what, I'll always be grateful.
Absolutely.
For you.
And there's peace and joy in the path, because like a real coach, sometimes what you want to see from the start is, are you going to really give everything you actually have to it? Are you actually going to hear what I'm saying and then put it into practice? Are you actually going to show that you've understood by your actions? As a coach, that's what you're hoping for. You give the tools to the kids, and then you're expecting them to go out and try it, fail, do it, realize, and then they do it some more. That's the light bulb that I was talking about at first. It's like, oh, now you see. To a degree, that's kind of what they're doing in that regard as well. They're invested just like you are, and they see you for what you really are, and they're still there, so they love you despite it. But they see all the goals and desires that you have, and they're just like, okay, well, what are you doing to get to that point? You know what I mean? Like, what? I'm
going to start molding you.
Yeah. Let's get to it.
You said it. I'm
agreeing. Yeah. Let's get to it now. You know what I mean? Like, what are we really doing?
Yeah.
And you can look back on it and love it, but I think it's a real discipline that everyone, man or woman, should get in the habit of doing, and just seeing their partner as a partner. When the feedback comes, you almost have to take you're supposed to be my husband, you're supposed to be my wife. Take that hat off for a second and realize this is your partner.
Yeah.
In that moment, this is your partner, just like it would be a business partner.
Yeah.
If you're starting a business with another person, y'all going to sit down, y'all going to go through some ideas that should lead to profit, growth, progression. So when feedback comes in the relationship, you need to be able to kind of look at each other and kind of remove the loving part of it, because you might think because she loves you, she's just going to not make you feel a certain way. Well, no, love is
she loves you.
Multifaceted.
She's gonna stick her neck out. She loves you enough that she's gonna put her foot down. She loves you enough that she's gonna tell you what you need to hear, but might not necessarily want to.
Right.
And she's gonna be more committed to it than any other business partner that you'll ever have in life.
Exactly.
So,
man, the epiphany I've had from hearing both of you brothers speak is insight to, which is part of like the eternal perspective. This is helping me put the marriage union in perspective of Heavenly Father's plan, because you made a comment about she's making you something that you couldn't be on your own.
Yeah.
And that is the grand thing about marriage, is like you're in this union with someone that has qualities that you lack, but when it's pushed on you, those qualities that you lack that they have, you're becoming in essence one. But we hinder that by being offended when the counsel comes, that we're not taking it as counsel, but we're taking it as an attack. You know, so this is because it's so new. My insight that I'm getting, I'm having a hard time like expressing it. But
no, you're good.
I am literally learning so much right now, just about how to approach these like new engagements from when the counsel comes, how to take it. No, this is helping me, molding me to become the person that I need to be. Because here I am with this woman that has these great qualities I lack. So I need to take it all in to become one and more, not to become who I need to be, but also to become more at one with her.
So this is unsolicited advice, but which you're not supposed to get. My wife tells me Chris, you give too much unsolicited advice. But you know, when your wife comes to you with this feedback, you can do two things. One, look for the value in it. And if you can find value, express the appreciation that you can see. If you can't find it on your own, say, hey, I know you're trying to help me. Tell me why you're giving me this feedback. You don't have to have all the answers, right? It's like, hey, I know that you're bringing this to me because you want to help me. You want to help our family. I know your motives, but I'm missing something. Help me with it. She's not just going to be like, no.
Yeah.
She's not going to say, no, I'm not going to tell you. She's going to probably be like, it's really cool that you asked. Because now I know you're looking for the thing that I wanted you to see all along.
Yeah.
So anytime you can see the value that she's trying to bring, and it's so sad for women and it's so sad for relationships, because they're working so hard to try and help us. And then we're doing everything we can to protect our own egos. And so we're rejecting them constantly with all of the help that they're trying to bring, with the feedback that they're trying to bring. And so you don't have to necessarily always recognize it, but you can always appreciate it. And then you can always ask like, hey, you probably have a lot of reasons that you're bringing this info to me. Here's what I picked up on so far. What am I missing?
Yeah.
You know? And then she's going to be like that mystical thing. She's going to go, I feel seen, you know?
Yeah. I love that. Yesterday, or maybe it was the day before, my wife, Kay, hit me with something. And she was kind of pensive. We were just walking through, I think, Costco or something like that, just kind of getting some shopping done before I had to pick up the kids from school. And she whips out this question. She's like, so I have a question for you. And I'm like, okay. She's like, do you think that women are the gift in life? And I'm like, what do you mean by gift? She's like, you know, like, are women the prize? Like, is that the ultimate thing to find, you know, like a wife or a woman for a man? And I'm like, I gave some like prideful, intentionally thought like answer of like, I don't think men always see it that way. And I said, like, I think men hope for the gift. And then as they start the relationship, when they found the right one, she becomes the gift to him. And I could tell the moment that I said it, that it didn't land at all. And I'm like, okay, did I say something wrong? She's like, no. It was good to hear your opinion. And I'm like, okay, I definitely said something wrong. So then I threw the question back at her. I'm like, well, what do you think? Do you think women are the gift? And she's like, yeah. And I'm like, why do you think that? And she's like, well, you look at it in our faith and things like that. You look at the scriptures, and nowhere in the scriptures does it say woman to a woman, you have found a good thing when you found a husband. but it counsels men, you have found a good thing when you found a wife. Adam was here first and it was not good. He needed Eve. And all through it, you know, she started just saying like all throughout the scriptures, it feels like we're kind of taught that women are the gift for life in a lot more ways than I think we can see. And I'm like, I definitely agree with that. So I hear you. I do think women are the gift. And then I was like, what do you think about men? And she's like, what do you mean by that? I'm like, do you think men are a gift? And she's like, no. And I'm like, why there? She's like, no, don't get me wrong. Men are amazing. I don't think they're the gift because of what I just said before. But she said, there's nothing that a woman wants more in life than to truly be loved by her man. She's like, truly, completely be loved by her man. She's like, there is nothing better in life. She's like, I've had 5 kids, love each and every one of them. I have a relationship with God and my relationship is great. But as far as this life, nothing has been better than when we have those moments in our relationship when I know you completely love me. And I was like, good grief. I almost wanted to be like, I'm sorry for that half-face answer I just gave you. You're everything. I'm so sorry. But as we talk about some of these things and just realize a little bit about how our relationships are built, that's why you should be able to receive any feedback from your wife, because that's all she's trying to do for you.
Yeah.
She's loving you the way that she wants to be loved.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily an imposition or anything like that. That's what they're looking for, and they innately give it. What they're just hoping for is the reciprocity and being able to receive it when they give it, but also to give it when they need it. You know, you said something about your wife saying like, or about you saying like, you know, I thought I had everything right. I thought I was checking the boxes, but I was really not.
Yeah, it's not about checking boxes.
At all.
Right.
At all. And so much about manhood, at least in American society and probably worldwide, is like, am I doing all the things that society says a man's supposed to do? Am I really being the man? And it's like, it's more than that.
Yeah.
It's so much more than that, especially in a society now in 2025 where gender roles are flipped all over the place. In our relationship, the reason why I'm able to pursue my dream of music that my wife helped push me to was the fact that she went and got her bachelor's degree at BYU while you were there, and then went and got a master's degree in educational design while I'm out here trying to chase a dream. I have no plan. She's got nothing but plans and has backed it up with the degrees to see it come into fruition. Her first job after getting her bachelor or her master's degree in educational design is making 6 figures. At my absolute best in working a job, I never got more than $50,000 a year. She walked in the door 6 figures, and she's able to do contract work to where she can work for different employers as they come. So she's able to get those type of contracts, multiple. So it's because of the work she did on herself and the work she's done contributed to the family, to where she's like, she could have been like what men would probably think a woman would do and hold it over my head. You know, like, why aren't you providing for the family like this? But instead, what she said was, you are providing so much for the family. You are here, you're present, you are available, you help, you hear me when I speak and things. And she's like, financially, we're okay because of what we've got going on. You're telling me that God says that this is a gift for you and that you need to share it. Go do that. Financially, we're okay. You don't have any other better opportunity than now. So much through our relationship, we've both needed to work to bring the finances in to help everything work. We're at a point to where that can be done by one of us and have that role switched. And I said yes. And it's because of her pushing me into something that I was talking myself out of, because it was like, no, I need a job. I can't do music if I don't have a job. And she's like, why? Mm-hmm. Why? Like, you know, I've been able to do this and we're able to have this. Go do what God's calling you to do. But, you know, be available. Don't get me wrong. Like, sure. You know, I'm working at things like that. So what I do around the house whenever I'm not on, you know, away or doing your performances and stuff, is I'm doing what stereotypically would be done by a woman. Like, I'm making sure the house is right. I'm taking the kids here and there. I'm doing the clothes. I'm doing those things because I'm home. Like, why not?
Sure.
And she voiced that to me. She's like, if we're going to do this, if I'm working the way I'm working, it helps to not have another thing to do when I'm done working, because this is so stressful sometimes. Yeah. And I was able to hear that and definitely understand it. So this is it. I'm seeing all this happen in my life over the last year as I start to realize who I have around me. Heavenly Father, one, I start to realize I need to start listening to him. But then my wife, we got married because I involved Heavenly Father in that choice. It's as clear now as it was then that she is who I need to be with. So why am I fighting it? Not necessarily fighting her, but fighting it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You know what I've given you. Use it. You know what I mean? Like you said it earlier, Heavenly Father's not necessarily, I don't know if it was necessarily in the podcast we were just talking, but Heavenly Father's not going to necessarily walk life for you.
Yeah.
But what he does do is he gives you the tools to know where to go. He gives you his presence when needed and asked for. But for the most part, he's letting his children learn the way they're supposed to learn, through actions, through failures, through successes, through life. And sometimes those affect others, as we know. But being who he is and seeing life from the internal perspective, he's like, I'm here if you need it, but I'm not just going to make you do what you need to do.
Yeah.
And trusting my wife is one of those things that I had to learn how to do. So I really appreciate this, because it's not only an epiphany for you, but it's been an epiphany that I've hit recently as well. And I don't know what it is about nearing 40 maybe, or I don't know, but
we're maturing.
Yeah, we're finally maturing. Our wives have been here from the start and we're playing catch up,
right.
but I really love
facts. It. And I know we're getting short on time, but I do want to ask you, Chris, because I know you want to be a contributor to lowering the divorce rates.
Yeah.
And you shared, your reason behind that. So what goes into actually helping that happen? Like, what's your process or advice in actually getting to a point to where you can be an assistant in doing that?
I think every relationship is a little bit different. Every marriage is a little bit different, but I think there are a lot of common things. And so, yeah, just the way that men handle feedback is obviously one of them. And we've talked about that a lot, but I think also men often don't understand their role. Some do, some get it. Crispin, man, it sounds like you get it. Maybe you guys both get it.
Finally.
But
always.
But, if you don't understand your role and if you don't understand expectations, there's going to be some failures that are just going to come. And something that what my wife has taught me a lot, and, my wife is my other just life's biggest hero, is that if you're not there for the little things, you typically aren't going to get to be there for the big things. And so I'll give you an example of that. So, I would come home from work and my wife would be talking to my oldest daughter or one of my kids and kind of pushing them, hey, you got to get your homework done. You got to get this done. There's a certain tone and a certain energy that she's using to kind of push. And I'm not necessarily saying it's bad. I think it fits naturally within her role. Now, as a man, I come home and I think I want to be in unison with her. I want to lock arms with her. And so I might match her tone. Well, I wasn't there for all the little things that preceded that moment. So I haven't earned the right to match her tone. But more than anything, that's not my role. So you kind of only need one person in the home. And most of the time, or a lot of the time, I guess I don't know, but a lot of the time it is the wife. So if your wife is pushing the kids to get things done, and if she's the one that's kind of remembering things, because my wife's memory is literally 10,000 times better than mine is for a lot of the little details. Men, I think a lot of men can relate to that. So she's naturally going to have a certain level of anxiety that she's running on as her fuel to keep the home organized, to keep things rolling, to keep things smooth. Yeah. And if I come home and match that same level of anxiety, not only have I not earned it, but it's also not my role. And so something that I've realized is every person in my home is going to, on a day-by-day basis, they're going to have a certain level of anxiety that's going to fluctuate. It's going to go up and down. Sometimes my kids are going to have a rough day at school. Sometimes my kids are going to come home on a high because they had a great day at school. And as they go through their roller coaster of emotions, which they're supposed to do, that's part of life. Yeah. My job, which I was a massive failure at, is I just need to come home and just assess everybody's anxiety level. I need to assess everyone's emotional level, and then start to find out how can I provide some calm and stability and some peace, and some fun, and kind of turn things around. That's a huge part of my role that I didn't understand, because I thought I was being helpful coming home and getting on my daughter's case. Hey, it's time to do homework. You know, it's more, I should come home and say, hey, sweetie, how was your day? Okay, cool. And use my tone and use my energy to start to de-escalate any feelings that she might have. And if I can do that day over day over day, eventually my kids start to come to me for things, because it's like, hey, dad's going to handle this really calm. When I need a fire lit under me, I'm probably going to go to mom. And when I need someone to just hear me and listen to me, someone that I can share my feelings with, or share my emotions with, or share my anxiety with, I know I can count on dad to share, to hold those with me, right? I can count on dad to be there with me and experience my life with me and experience what I'm feeling, because I can share those feelings and those thoughts and those emotions with him. And I know it's safe to do so. A lot of women are like, I want to feel safe. And it's funny, because it's not funny. It's ironic, but you know, I would go to work, and there have been times in my life, in my career, where I've worked 2 or 3 jobs. There have been, and we can probably relate to that. There's times where, you know, I leave the house at 8 o'clock in the morning and don't get home until 9 o'clock at night. And my wife is telling me like, hey, I don't necessarily feel safe, or I don't feel safe emotionally. I'm like, there's a roof over your head, and there's food on the table, and there's food in the fridge. Like, how are you not safe? I didn't understand. I wasn't picking up on it. But she's like, yeah, but emotionally, I'm completely alone. I can't share my feelings with you because you don't listen. I can't share my feelings with you because you take it personal. And so I felt like I was exhausting myself. But one of the mistakes that I would make is when she would tell me I don't feel safe, I would just say, okay, I need to make more money, or I need to work harder. And that's not what she was asking for all along. And so, you know, I think that's another big thing is men. I think that the happiest version of a man is a man who's embracing his role of saying like, no, I am so lucky that I get to provide peace, and I get to provide consistency, and I get to be the person that lowers anxiety. And the caveat to being able to do that is you have to have it inside yourself first. And I spent so much of my life in my marriage feeling insecure about whether or not I was enough, that I had my own turmoil going on inside all the time. And talking to my wife now, where I'm finally secure enough that I can listen, I finally have calmed my own inner turmoil enough to where I don't take it personal. I'm seeing value in what she's saying. My wife doesn't care. My wife over the years never was as critical of how much I made or how much I didn't make as I was of myself. Right. And I've been able to grow my role and kind of expand my income, and I'm making a lot more money than I used to. And what I realized was this isn't what's going to bring peace and security in the home. It doesn't really matter how much you're making.
Right.
And I thought that once I would get to a certain marker, you know, once I was making a certain amount of money, once I was providing a certain kind of lifestyle, I thought, okay, then
things will change.
Then things will change. And they didn't.
Not at all.
Not at all. And so it took me long enough to make enough money to realize that, oh, that's not it. It's something else. What she's looking for is something else. And so, just literally learning everything the hard way and failing until luckily my wife has given me enough chances and stayed with me to where we're still together and we're still a family unit. So now I finally get to enjoy the role that I could have enjoyed the entire time. She wasn't focused on it was me. And for probably almost every man, from the comment section and things like feedback that I get, there's a lot, there's thousands and thousands and thousands of guys, tens of thousands of guys. They're like, my wife's a narcissist. It's like, no, she's not. She's not, you're just really insecure. And we have a hard time admitting that as men.
We do.
I
feel like a lot of our mental comes from that. You've mentioned the word multiple times today, which was ego. And our ego is just so totally different than women's. And that's probably why we always say they're just a different creature. Well, they are very different creature. and their ego isn't as strained and tight knit as ours. My wife is gonna love this episode. She's gonna love you, and you know.
Why don't you
I've taken I know, right? Like this has just been huge, man. I really hope all of, you know, the men that tune into this video that we can get it in here, because like you said, it does start in our heart to be able to see our wives, our partners, you know, girlfriends, just in a different light, and is more of someone that is trying to add to us and not take away. And that's the biggest thing that I've taken away from this discussion today.
Absolutely. I'm really grateful. I'm really grateful not only that we get a chance to catch up, because it's been a minute since we've been able to talk, but just being able to kind of just really get an idea of what life's been like for you has been eye-opening, and finding out just how much relatable situations that have not only happened with you but with us has been really helpful. But just finally just talking with someone else who's been able to kind of go through the storm and then come out the other end, not just, well, I made it, but like I made the storm benefit me, I think is what's huge. And I think that more than anything is what's so helpful. And for those listening that I don't know, Chris now has, you know, an Instagram page and things, and he's utilizing social media as a way to kind of push the conversation along, to kind of get some of these ideas out, to hopefully help people in their relationships as well, and to use some of these stories that are relatable out there to help positively. But it's so good to see it happen for someone in a realistic way. Not just have someone say, oh, this is what you need to do, but to hear someone's journey through it. Because it's like you said in the last little bit of our conversation, you hadn't earned that right yet to come match the tone. And so many times we see people on social media with all the advice being flashed at you, and it's like, yeah, that's cool.
Or your receipts.
Yeah,
or
exactly.
Your receipts.
It doesn't resonate because the investment of that time has not been earned for me to hear that advice and say, oh, apply it. But in conversations like this, I really feel like for those listening as well as us, the advice hits home because you were able to earn it by sharing the journey to how you learned it. Not from a book, but from actual life. Not from studies, but from actual life. And involving the right people in your life and exercising the right amount of humility when needed in life to see it. And you've been able to not only share that with us and teach us that, but you're able to continually teach yourself that. And like you said, the joy that your whole face lit up when you got to that point is like, I'm now living that part of life that I wanted and could have had, all along. And as sad as that might seem for some people who want to look at it in a pessimistic style, it's so joyous to hear, because it means that hope that sometimes men have, that toxic optimism. There is a positive, there is a helpful amount of optimism that should be there as well. Yeah. That it's not just over because we're in the storm. Yeah. But if things don't change, you'll never get out of the storm. So sure, there's hope, but don't just be toxically optimistic. There's some stuff to do. Sure. And there's some things to get done.
And I like your optimism. I don't know that the storm ever goes away, And
truly.
And one thing I can say too, and I think this is something that I've had to learn and I'm still learning to manage or to deal with, is that when you have some of these light bulbs go off and you start to see and realize, I'm just going to say it for myself, how big of a failure I've been. It's bittersweet in some ways. I have a lot of gratitude because I'm grateful for every moment with my kids. I'm grateful for every moment with my wife. But you can't have that without holding on to kind of the failure that I was, And so to what you guys I think are saying is, I'm not coming from a place of superiority or authority or anything like that. Right. I have failed my way into a position of gratitude and into a place where I'm finally, like, I would give anything to have the last 20 years back. And the reason that I want to share this message is because, if the failure rate of marriage across the country is 50%, and you're looking at that 50% on a bell curve, what percentage of people are suffering? Well, it's probably 70 to 80%.
Yeah.
There's probably only 10 to 20%. I don't know, right? I don't necessarily have that data, but just looking at the fail rate alone, it's like, probably 70 to 80% of marriages are going through a lot of unnecessary pain, and most of it comes down to men that don't know their role.
Yeah.
And so, my wife, once I dropped my ego, and this is probably the best one piece of advice I could give is, any man that can shrink his ego enough to let his wife be his mentor, she can tell you what she wants, but she's only going to do it in a tone that you're going to appreciate is if you're not resisting it. But women are incredible, and they're so committed to the men in their lives, and they're so committed to the kids in their lives. And I would give anything, to go back and relive the past 20 years doing the things that I'm talking about. But since I can't do that, hopefully that's a gift that I can give to someone else that's younger than me and fresher along the journey, because to the point that you made earlier, the better your wife gets to know you and the more she understands your weaknesses, the more vulnerable you become and the scarier it becomes and the harder it gets. Right? If we're trying to protect our ego with someone that we have complete vulnerability with, it's a recipe for disaster. And like, we don't have to have all the answers as men. God didn't make us to have all of the answers.
Not at all.
As men. And the women in our lives are a gift. They're a huge gift. My wife is the greatest gift in my life. She's taught me more and mentored me than anyone else. She's been there for me in ways that no one else could ever be there for me. And she's literally never failed my kids.
Yeah.
No matter how big of a failure I've been, she's never failed my kids. Like, I have so much to be grateful for. And so, man, it doesn't have, like, we're missing out on all the best stuff by protecting our own egos and being insecure. And it's like, guys, if we can just let go of that one thing, we're the ones holding on to it, right? We're our own worst enemy in this whole thing. And, so that's what I want to share.
Man, that's great. That's amen.
Don't have too much more to add to that.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Really, we really appreciate it. And I do feel like this conversation is helpful, needed, and must continue, to be honest with you. For those that were able to join us, we really appreciate you guys for stopping through and listening to this podcast. And all links and things to the social media pages, not only for Chris but ourselves, will be posted below as you watch this. But we really appreciate your time. Thanks so much for tuning in to Brothers in the Foyer, and we hope to see you soon again.
Thank you.
Inviting all to come and try.